time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Thank you, Chad Erickson, and great to have you all with us on this Monday edition of the program. It's Monday, and that means Bill Bender will drop by and talk some college football. Comes your way in 10 minutes. Lot to talk about from the Saturday that was. We'll have new college football playoff rankings on Tuesday night. We'll talk about those, obviously, on Wednesday. Plenty of NFL in this show starting now with Sam Yarnell, who hangs out with us on the program. All right, Sam. Is anybody in a better mood than you? No, because the Buffalo Bills. Well, this is what they do in the regular season with Kansas City. They find ways to win against Kansas City, and they did yesterday. And look, I've got a lot to say, but I won't monopolize the entire segment. But I do have a lot to say here. One, what a shining moment for Josh Allen, who just I tweeted this out after the game yesterday. While I'd like to see Kansas City win a third straight Super Bowl, because who doesn't want to see history? Who doesn't want to be able to talk about history? Doing a show in those times. It's always great to do. I would have loved to have been doing sports talk when Michael Jordan was winning all those championships. It would have been great. Unless you were a Knicks fan like I was, and then it sucked. But if not Kansas City, I'm now of the mindset that I want to see Buffalo win a Super Bowl, and I want to see Josh Allen win one. Because this guy just puts it all out there every week, and he is playing, without question, the best football I've watched him play in his career. And yesterday was another case in point. You get, Kansas City comes back and scores after Buffalo scores a touchdown. Kansas City marches right back down the field in championship team fashion, scores a touchdown, gets the game to within 2. And then what does Buffalo do? Just stepped on their throats, just tore their hearts out with Josh Allen on a 4th down or on a 3rd down, running it in for a touchdown. I mean, it was just fantastic stuff from Buffalo yesterday.
It was, Jason. So I also obviously have a ton to say about this game. First of all, I want to say, as openly as I have criticized in my media career Sean McDermott, and on this show Sean McDermott, for a lot of mishaps that he's had in his coaching career, yesterday was a shining star in his coaching career. Sean McDermott made decisions yesterday that won the Buffalo Bills that game, and quite frankly, Sean McDermott outcoached his mentor, Andy Reid, in that football game yesterday. There was levels to the coaching as well. Joe Brady had Steve Spagnuolo in a spin cycle. This is the first time the Kansas City Chiefs have allowed another team to score 30 points since the Eagles Super Bowl. That was 2 Super Bowl wins ago. Joe Brady had Steve Spagnuolo running in circles yesterday. The jet motions everywhere, the orbit motions consistently riddled throughout this offense was amazing, and he was still able to keep it traditional enough where you can go away from that game knowing if these two teams meet again in the playoffs, there is still a lot that Joe Brady can do with this offense. He was, in my mind, severely holding himself back, which was incredibly smart in playing the long game. On the Josh Allen side, listen, that game yesterday is the reason he is your odds-on heavy favorite to win the NFL MVP right now, at a barely plus money price at that. Josh Allen played like your MVP yesterday, which he has in 9 of the Bills' 11 games, actually 8 of the Bills' 11 games this year. We could say 8.5. There was 1 win and 1 loss where he just did not look good, and another half win. All of that said, the Bills played a great football game yesterday. I think what their starting quarterback said in all of the pregame, week leading up to, and postgame interviews spoke more to it than anything else. This was another Week 11 win. Sure, you're 9-2 if you're the Buffalo Bills for the first time since 1992. That's great. Sure, with 2 Dolphins losses and 1 more win, you win the division. We're in Week 11. That's all wonderful. The 1 seed conversation does become interesting. You know the Bills don't want to play on Wild Card Weekend, and forcing the Chiefs to would be huge. But all that said, it's another win. It's great to get. It's not the Super Bowl.
No, It's not, and I'll still say this. Kansas City still is not playing its best football, and they almost went into Buffalo and stole that game yesterday again. So at the end of all of this, I want to see, my biggest thing coming off this, because we haven't talked much about Kansas City in this other than to say, they gave up 30, but I'll say this. How they look, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to win the division. All of that's great. This obviously puts a dent in the idea of them being able to get the top seed potentially in the AFC, although I still think when push comes to shove, they do. How they bounce back off this loss is what I am most interested to see, because you had Patrick Mahomes come out and say this was fuel. Okay, if it is, let me see that now, because I'm still looking for the fire. I'm still looking for the fuel that's going to create the fire for this team, because I don't see it. I still don't see it. Not consistently over 60 minutes. I got to get to Baltimore and Pittsburgh, because the Josh Allen MVP conversation really took that shift yesterday with Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense just being shut down in Pittsburgh by a Steelers team that was able to win without scoring a touchdown. By the way, Josh Allen at plus 125 on FanDuel for MVP, Lamar Jackson at plus 200. There is still an opportunity here for Lamar Jackson, by the way, to win the MVP. Put that aside, though. I mean, look, I've said all along, I think Pittsburgh is a Super Bowl contender, and because of that defense and what we saw yesterday, you still have to feel that way, despite the fact that they couldn't score a touchdown.
We talked just in that previous game about how great the coaching was for the Buffalo Bills. The Baltimore Ravens coaching lost them this game, unequivocally. Derrick Henry, the second favorite by, I think, 10 betting cents to win Offensive Player of the Year, had 16 touches of the football in this game. That cannot happen when you are playing a game to this level. To me, this established the Ravens as pretenders as pretenders this season, because they're showing you that they're not going to give the ball to their best player. And I know you want to talk on and on and on about how Lamar Jackson is great. Listen, I hate to say it, Lamar Jackson doesn't have half the success he's had this season if he doesn't have the best or second best at worst running back in football 7 yards behind him every single play. Derrick Henry, again, 16 touches in this game. Unacceptable. Abhorrent coaching by the Baltimore Ravens. Mike McDonald leaving that offense may be the worst thing that's happened to them since, I don't know what, Joe Flacco leaving town. All that said, the Steelers have a championship defense, and they're starting to show it to us week in and week out.
I think the reason they only ran it 16 times with Derrick Henry is they're going up against the fourth best rushing defense in the league. I think the Steelers wanted them to run the football. I think you got to put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands as much as possible in that game and just let him make decisions. We're out of time. We'll come back, do some more football. Bill Bender on the other side. Welcome back to this Monday edition of the show. We did some NFL. Let's do a little college football. Our weekly hit with this guy. 5th grade basketball coaching phenomenon, Bill Bender.
Yeah, we talked about that before the break. How are you guys doing? Happy week 13. We got 2 more weeks left in the regular season. If you go to Sporting News, we have all the tiebreakers covered. We did that all weekend.
Wow, you are becoming a pro's pro at this TV thing. See, look at that. You set yourself up. Bill Bender, the Sporting News, hangs out with us on the show on Mondays to tell us everything we missed in college football. In case we didn't get to watch all of it, he watches it all for us. He's like our human cheat sheet. So Oregon wins, and boy, Wisconsin sure had enough opportunities to hand Oregon its first loss.
You know, there's 2 ways to look at it. You could say, hey, Oregon's not ready for a championship run, and should we be concerned about Dylan Gabriel and environments like that against pretty good defenses? Or you could say Oregon went into a place where over the years I've watched Ohio State go in there and struggle. I've watched really good Michigan teams go in there and lose, and that's part of the Big Ten experience. Camp Randall at night can be tough, no matter how good or bad Wisconsin is. And their defense really carried the day. Wisconsin 1 of 12 with 3rd down. Oregon gets an interception late from Uiagalelei, and they survive to a bye week. And it's a good bet they're going to be in the Big Ten championship game. For people that are going to pick at Oregon, I mean, 11-0 is a good place to be right now.
There isn't anything. Well, real quick though. Let me just follow up on that real fast. Even if they lose in that championship game, there isn't anything keeping them out of the playoffs, right?
No, I think the Big Ten drama comes this week. So twofold: Ohio State, Indiana, and I know we can talk about them more later. But to me, if Indiana loses, what happens? The Tennessee fans who are squeezed out of the playoff right now are going to come after Indiana full force, pitchforks in hand, all that stuff. If Ohio State loses, how do you do the two-loss argument between them and Tennessee? I don't think Ohio State's in danger of falling out. Oregon certainly isn't. If they beat Washington, you can pencil them in. The only question is, I would say, do they go lower than 6 if they lose to the Buckeyes? And I still think the answer is no.
Bill, I want to go back to that Wisconsin game for a second because this was so interesting to me. You mentioned their defense kept them in that game. Of course it did, in a 16-13 final score game. Anyone could tell you that. But the interesting thing to me, Bill, is that Sunday morning, Wisconsin turns around after having lost by 3 points to the number 1 team in the country and fires Phil Longo, their offensive coordinator. What on earth was the thinking behind this? Their seats really get that hot that fast in Camp Randall?
Well, I think the new move now is we're not firing a lot of head coaches. There hasn't been a Power 4, I can't get used to saying that, Power 4 coach
either
get fired yet during the season. We've had group of 5 coaches come and go, but I think the move is to fire your coordinator. Take the heat off you. Norvell did that at Florida State. Wisconsin hasn't scored, and I still think there's something to be said about offensive philosophy. When what Luke Fickell needs to do is marry what he did at Cincinnati with what Wisconsin's had in the past, and he needs to find a quarterback and not a portal quarterback. They need to find their own. Wisconsin hasn't had a game-changing quarterback since Russell Wilson. I mean, it's seriously been that long, and that's been one of the separators with them and the rest of the Big Ten.
Bill, take me to LSU in Florida. Talk about acts getting stale. Has the act officially gotten to that point when it comes to Brian Kelly with everything we witnessed on Saturday night?
Well, I can assure you I don't talk to my 5th grade girls basketball team like that and some of the sideline stuff. I would get in a little more trouble than BK, I think. Yes and no. I mean, he still knows how to win games, but fit, I always say this, fit matters in college football. It does. And from the shoot, you didn't know if Brian Kelly fit there. And now that they've had a 4th loss, and that was a tough environment, I'll concede that. Florida was ready to go. They went in the swamp. I thought LSU was going to win that game, but Florida's got a little bit of a bright future with DJ Lagway and Billy Napier, something I didn't think I would say after that Miami game in the opener. So, yes, but for LSU, okay, you get rid of him. Who are you going to hire? Who are you going to go after? I think there's one guy I would keep an eye on if he continues to do what he's doing. He's right down the road. I think John Summerall is one of the up-and-coming stars in college football. He's not up-and-coming. He's here. He did that at Troy. He's doing it at Tulane. And you want to talk about fit. Wouldn't he fit there?
I'm just thinking, and I know that silence on TV doesn't make for great television, but I'm just wondering, would that fan base, if the next head coach is the guy from Tulane, for all that you're talking about, is that going to be palatable to that fan base?
That's fair, and that's a fair point because you see in the SEC when you hire the hot group of 5 guys, sometimes it doesn't work. But I would push back that sometimes it does, because if you show Billy Napier a little patience, maybe DJ Lagway and him can get it to work. Nobody here said that Florida was going to win 10 games this year against the schedule they're at. I'm actually impressed they're getting to a bowl game. They'll beat Florida State. They could give Ole Miss a good game this weekend. Imagine the momentum Billy Napier would have if they beat LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, go to a bowl game. None of us thought that was possible. So, but to your point, LSU is one of those fan bases. Palatable is a great word because it has to meet what the fans and the boosters want to a certain extent. You have to have credentials to coach at a place like that.
Go ahead, Sam.
Bill, I got to get to the Big 12 because, wow, that got crazy over the weekend. Kansas upsetting BYU, and now everything's up for grabs. Colorado's the betting favorite in the conference. Kind of what was your takeaway from this weekend in the Big 12? And is this the end for BYU? Did you see anything that kind of shows that maybe they aren't everything we thought they were?
They were living off turnovers a little bit. They made some unfortunate mistakes. The bounces didn't go their way for once on Saturday. You had a pooch punt, go off a player's back, result in a fumble. Kansas scores on that. You had a fourth down call that, just throw it. Don't go short of the sticks. Throw it to the stick and try to go that way. But they use their mulligan. I always use that analogy in this race where they just use their mulligan late. And now they face a really tough test against a team that I think is as hot as anybody. Arizona State with Sam Leavitt, 3 touchdown passes the last 3 weeks. They haven't been to Tempe since 1997. That's one of those underrated tough places to play. Again, if we could rewind to July and I told you guys, hey, Arizona State, Colorado looks pretty good for a Big 12 championship game, you guys would have laughed me off the show.
You're right. I absolutely would have. Colorado, I want to talk about. We'll get to them on the other side. Also, Tennessee and Georgia. Don't go anywhere. Lots more with Bill Bender next. Continuing the conversation on college football, this Monday edition of SportsWrap. Good to have you all with us. In 10 minutes, back to the NFL. Couple more games to get to as we deconstruct Week 11. And big news from the New York Giants. The news is they want the top pick in the draft or the second pick in the draft. We'll explain. There's Bill Bender from the Sporting News hanging out with us. Sammy Arnell rejoins us as well. Let's talk about this game we saw with Colorado over the weekend. Winning again. And, I mean, look, is there a possibility that we actually see them in the top 12 this week coming off this win against Utah, Bill?
Not yet, but close. And I think BYU will still be ranked ahead of them, but it will be 2-3 spot difference tops. Okay. And if those two teams play in the Big 12 championship game, I think Colorado will be favored right now. You watch them, the way that they handled business against Utah. You have Shedeur Sanders playing the way that he is. There's a small risk for upset this week with Kansas, but here's a stat I dug up. Kansas hasn't won when they give up 250 passing yards or more this season. I think Shedeur's good for 250 plus in that game. So I think they're gonna win the Big 12. I do. I think they're gonna win the Big 12. And who had, again, this running theme today, who had Colorado with a first round bye. That might happen.
What's been the biggest difference to you since the loss? Well, let's go back to the loss against Kansas State, basically. I mean, what is the biggest difference that you see in sort of the way this team has performed and sort of elevated their game? If they have elevated their game, again, they haven't beaten they still haven't beaten a ranked opponent. But
their defense is good. Their defense has gotten better. Their defense gets after the passer. They play from ahead, and they have the two. Like I always start that conversation with this. When they walk on the field, they have the two best players on the field. Like, that's a good start. When you have Shedeur's been the best quarterback on the field, I actually think he deserves a little more Heisman love. And Travis Hunter is the best athlete on the field on both sides of the ball. So Deion's kind of proven that you can win with a star system. You're right. They haven't played anybody in terms of like a team that can threaten them. And Utah's in the tank a little bit. But I was impressed with how they disposed of Utah, who had at least a tough defense coming into that game. So I think they're going to take care of business the next 2 weeks, get to the Big 12 championship game. The game I want to see is Arizona State, Colorado, because that Arizona State team's playing very well on both sides of the ball.
Bill, in terms of the next step for Colorado, obviously it seems like Travis Hunter is going to win the Heisman at this juncture, the strong betting favorite to win that award. But when we talk about the draft and the NFL, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter are 1-2 in terms of odds to go number 1 overall in the draft. Is it a foregone conclusion that a Colorado player is going with that first overall pick no matter what in your mind?
Well, you have choices, I want to see what the NFL Combine and the NFL scouts think of Travis Hunter. Are they serious about him playing both ways? I think the answer is no. Like, he could potentially play some on one side of the ball. I do think the comparison to Champ Bailey is apt because, Champ Bailey, I didn't realize how many receptions he had at Georgia. Mm-hmm. But I look at that from the standpoint, Travis will probably play offense. If it were me, I would put him at receiver. Shedeur will be the first quarterback off the board. I've thought that since last summer. I had him number 1 in our rankings in the preseason, and I know that sounds like, hey, pat yourself on the back, but no, I think he's a game changer at quarterback. The way he hangs in the pocket, his deep ball's great. He's efficient. He extends plays. He does the things that a quarterback for a losing franchise would need to do. So the only question is he going to the Giants? Is he going, who's going to have that number 1 pick? And I think it's an interesting race for it. So I would say Shedeur is a better bet to be the number 1 pick because he's quarterback.
Real quick, Bill, does Dion go with Shedeur wherever he goes?
I'd say 50-50. I think this goes to the next level because
the Giants are not hiring Deion Sanders.
They might.
Bill, they're not hiring Deion Sanders.
I've never heard of a quarterback coach father-son combo outside of the level of sports that I currently coach right now. But that's 5th grade, not NFL football. I agree. I mean, but it is something that we will track and follow all during the offseason because Deion is Deion, and he's never not coached his kids.
Give me a thought on Tennessee and Georgia. With a big bounce back for that Georgia team.
Yeah, Georgia pretty good when Carson Beck doesn't turn the ball over. I'm impressed because they didn't have Trevor Etienne. They used the tight ends in the offense. They kind of combined 3 tight ends into what Brock Bowers gave them last season, and that worked out with the way they threw the ball down the field. And the defense showed up in the second half and shut down Tennessee. I don't think we should be surprised. We should wonder, okay, can Georgia push up into a first-round playoff game at home? Now, I mentioned those SEC tiebreakers, which you can find at our site. They show me this. Here's what's going to happen if the chalk wins out. You're going to get, if Texas beats Texas A&M, and it'll come down to a conference opponent tiebreaker, you're probably going to get Alabama and Texas and Atlanta. So for all this speculating, you get that matchup. I kind of laughed at that. That's the most predictable matchup possible.
It is. Do you give Georgia any chance, Bill, to win the SEC?
Probably. I think they're going to be locked out because of those tiebreakers. But for them, it's go take care of business. They play UMass this week. Why? I don't know. Then they go play Georgia Tech. Take care of those games. Georgia Tech, they've picked off some teams. So finish 10-2, get to the playoff, and then you can use the underdog card all the way through the playoffs.
My predetermined Notre Dame question. They're sitting pretty right now, aren't they?
They are. They're going to have people pick at them, namely Tennessee. Like I said, Tennessee's in trouble because they're going to be the team that's squeezed out. So when you know you're squeezed out, what do? You start lashing out at other teams. So they're going to lash out at Indiana if they lose to Ohio State. They're going to lash out at Notre Dame and say, your huge wins are against academy teams. What are we doing? We beat Bama. That's coming. And but I think for Notre Dame, the important thing is to just go out and play a very solid Army team. Both of these teams are really good defense. It's a throwback to 1924 when these teams were super important. I love that they're playing at Yankee Stadium. And this game might play out like 1924 with a 20-17 type run heavy affair.
Real quick, I got about 10 seconds here. Will style points matter for Notre Dame in that game?
A little bit, but I mean, I think the fact that Army is unbeaten and has the top rushing attack and one of the top defenses, they'll be fine.
Bill Bender, Sporting News. Check out his football work there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're coming back. More NFL on the other side. Let's take it to segment 4 on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. Coming up in 10 minutes. What'd you expect? Shrug emoji. All right. Sam Yarnell, continue to deconstruct Week 11 in the NFL. There's also some big quarterback news to get to today. Let's run through it. Bears-Packers. Boy, if you're the Bears and you can't win that game yesterday the way it was going, you got to start to wonder if you will ever beat the Packers again. Second week in a row in the NFL, a blocked field goal, a walk-off blocked field goal ends a game. tell you, you can watch sports forever and you'll always see something new. I thought some very positive signs again for Caleb Williams in this game. I still think he's going to be fine. I don't think he is the problem. I think the structure and the environment he is in is the problem. I don't think Caleb Williams is going to be the problem long term. I just hope they get it figured out so they don't ruin him. Take that, put it aside. You had some thoughts on the officiating yesterday.
Yeah, I will just say off of that, I do think Caleb Williams was probably the fourth best quarterback in this draft. And he was taken with the first overall pick. That's going to haunt the Bears for years. But listen, the officiating across the board in the NFL yesterday was absolutely unacceptable.
It's terrible.
We talked about that, and I'll get to the Packers-Bears game in 30 seconds. We talked about the Bills-Chiefs game. The Bills scored a touchdown on a play that should have been offensive pass interference on Mac Hollins. And then the Chiefs on that drive that you were talking about where they marched right down the field, on fourth down, throw the ball into the end zone, 4 feet over a receiver's head, and get a pass interference penalty called on the Bills on a completely uncatchable ball. The officiating yesterday, game to game to game to game, was just off the walls. There was also a horrible call in the Titans game. All of that said, the play that won the Packers this game, that blocked field goal attempt at the end where Caleb Williams, to his credit, had marched right down the field and put his team in position to win that game in walk-off style. Horrible coaching by Matt Eberflus to not get another playoff, but neither here nor there. The officials let 3 Green Bay Packers line up over the long snapper on the field goal formation. That is completely illegal. The NFL has to reform the way that they're officiating football games, because quite frankly, the pass interference, the both ways in the Buffalo game, the pass interference in the Titans game, or I'm sorry, the targeting in the Titans game, all judgment calls.
Oh, the targeting in the Titans game was terrible.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Whatever. They don't have targeting in the NFL.
No, I know.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. Yeah. Whatever. Unnecessary
defenseless
roughness.
receiver.
Right. Regardless. All of that. All of that stuff, judgment call, flag has to be thrown by the official who sees it happen. This is an illegal formation written into the book. The only rule on a field goal attempt is that you as a defender are not allowed to line up anywhere within the long snapper's shoulders. I obviously know this as somebody who used to long snap back during my football playing days. It is incredibly dangerous for someone to run right over the long snapper because of the position that they have to put themselves in while making the snap. It puts you in a really bad position in terms of a ton of bones in your body that could break. And it's not safe for players. Sure, it leads to exciting plays that end up winning the Packers the game. Yeah. But at the end of the day, Jason, at what cost? We have to do something about the officiating in this league.
And I don't know what the answer is. Because if you're going to say we have to do something, the next question always is from me, all right, what is that? Is it adding more officials? Is it having more enhanced replay and somebody in somebody's ear saying, no, that was not a defenseless receiver. He hit him in the chest. The same way you have when the ball is spotted, you have the ability for officials to get that quick replay. I don't know what it is. Real quick.
I've got an idea for you. The way that we go, or the way that the NFL goes back a week later and fines players for hits that they deem excessive or excessive celebration that they don't get flagged for on the field, let's start fining the referees for a flag that they missed or an excessive flag that they threw that some arbitrary board decided should not have been thrown. Let's start doing that.
I just think that
fining the players.
Yeah, as much as I love the idea of fining officials, that still doesn't solve the problem on the field in that moment. And they have to come up with a solution that's going to correct calls in the now, not on a report 2 days later. Jets, Colts, got to get to that. We know the Jets suck. But you know what? Anthony Richardson, real quick, played a good game yesterday, and we got to give him some credit for that because a lot of guys get benched, go into that situation. You don't know what they're going to come out on the other side as. 20 of 30 passing, played a really good, solid game, made some big plays late. Jets obviously couldn't. And Indianapolis finds itself back in the win column. The Jets are, I think, 3-9 or 3-8. I don't know, whatever it is, 2-9.
Whatever. The Jets are in the basement. That's what the Jets are.
Yes, they are. But hats off to Anthony Richardson. That's my point.
You're 100%. I don't know why people were so ready to write off Anthony Richardson after 10 career starts in a franchise that has been completely lost since one of the best quarterbacks in recent memory in terms of draft stock just decided to retire a week before the season. Yeah. Why did we not give Anthony Richardson more time? He showed you yesterday that he can make the change. And also the report coming out this past week of the Colts where they didn't actually want to go to Anthony Richardson. They wanted to stay with Joe Flacco. They just felt forced to go to Anthony Richardson because of how bad Joe Flacco was. My goodness, seats need to be hot in Indianapolis because this kid can do it at the NFL level. And yesterday he proved it to you.
All right, we'll hold the Giants quarterback change. We'll throw that in odds and ends. So I want to make sure we give it a couple of minutes before we make our Monday Night Football picks with the Texans and Cowboys.
I got to go make some cutlets.
Good Lord. We're coming back. Got more to get to. Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, it is what it is. All right. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. Hell of an ending in Minneapolis yesterday. And the end for a Giants quarterback. Odds? We'll talk some Monday Night Football. Sam Yarnell. It is what it is. The banner at the top of the screen reads, "Something to consider. A sucker is born every day," and his name was Jason Page. Bingo, and bingo was his name. So I invested some time on Friday night into the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight in Dallas. I invested some time on this show to Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. The first thing I want to do is apologize to our audience. I, as the owner of Decibel 88, the company that owns SportsWrap with Jason Page, I, as the executive producer of this show, and I, as the host, name on the marquee on this show, have to apologize to our audience that we spent as much time talking about Mike Tyson, so much video, B-roll, basically did advertisements, guests, basically did advertisements for Netflix, who couldn't even get me a press credential to go watch this farce in Dallas. Hold on. Wait. It's still buffering. Hold on.
Wait, it just logged me out. It just logged me out.
Yeah, hold on. Wait 30 seconds and we'll get back to you. Wow! I mean, this was... Now, look. Here's the one... There is one upside to this whole thing. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor was a banger. I mean, there's no getting around that. That was a terrific fight. Wrong result because it is boxing, and if it's boxing and a decision and all that, there's going to be shenanigans. But that fight was fantastic. Look, I got hoodwinked. I saw the videos of Mike Tyson training, getting ready for this fight, and then he decided to just stand in the ring for 16 minutes on Friday night, collect $20 million. Jake Paul got 40. I will never invest another second. As long as he's doing this, I will never invest another second in anything Jake Paul puts on the air anywhere. I'm done. I'm just done because the guy, he got us. He got us.
Wait. So you're not going to watch his next fight against former President Jimmy Carter? Because I'm going to be locked in for that one.
Yeah.
I, unlike our good friend Jason Page, did not spend a second of my Friday night watching this fight. In case you missed it, it was Ace Bailey's debut for Rutgers against Monmouth. And yes, I spent more time watching that basketball game than I did watching this fight. But I will say my interesting takeaway from it all was this, aside from the fact that Netflix really needs to figure it out in the next month, because they got 2 games on Christmas for the NFL, and that's going to draw about 10 times the viewership. My main takeaway outside of this was there was a video after the fight. This has nothing to do with the fight because, again, I use my brain for sports, not wasting it on Jake Paul. There was an interesting video that came out. Mike McCarthy was actually, obviously the fight's at AT&T. Sure. Jerry and Mike McCarthy both in attendance. There's a video of both of them walking out, and some worker or someone in that tunnel started saying something to Jerry about Deion Sanders being hired right in front of Mike McCarthy. And listen, I'm not one, I've come on this program many times and said he's a bad coach, not to make this segment about football, but completely to make this segment about football. I feel bad for the guy. Like, they had this whole marquee Netflix event, thousands of people in there. I don't want to say tens of thousands because Jason and I talked about how they struggled to sell tickets.
They had 70,000.
Thousands of people in there.
They had 70,000.
All those people, and this is what Mike McCarthy has to deal with in his own stadium on a Friday night when he's got to get ready for a Monday night cross-state showdown. I think
Mike McCarthy. I don't feel bad for him. He's getting paid. I don't feel bad for any of these guys. He's getting paid. He will, and he's not going to be. And he's not going to be. I think he knows in his heart of hearts he's probably not going to be the head coach there. Real quick,
I'll say this about the boxing though.
Yes.
About the actual. There. I know this went around on Twitter.
Yeah.
But like, there were a lot of moments where it looked like Mike Tyson could have taken things a little more seriously. And he kind of backed off of Jake Paul in a way like, I'm not going to say it was fixed, but it didn't look not fixed.
Yeah, no, they didn't do much to convince me it wasn't fixed. Let me say this. On the production of the broadcast, I love Ariel Helwani. We had him on the show. This is not a slap at him. I cannot listen to that play-by-play guy for another second. I mean, it's so over the top. Mauro Ranallo or whatever his name is. That dude's that dude is unlistenable, unwatchable. There is not. I know him from his days in WWE. He still thinks he's doing WWE. It's so over the top. It's unwatchable. I don't think the NFL will actually do as big a number as this did. This had 60 million. This had 60 million worldwide views. I don't think the NFL is going to top that number. So I think from a standpoint of the buffering and the traffic to Netflix and all that, I think they're going to be okay. WWE had to be watching this as well because Monday Night Raw comes to Netflix starting in January. They had to be concerned too. Odds and ends are next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby. Before we do, a reminder. Check out our new SportsWrap Substack. NFL picks, insider betting selections from Sammy Arnell. Sometimes I'll put some in. I had a nice 3-teamer yesterday, I have to say. I did nail a good 3-teamer yesterday, Sammy Arnell. So I was pretty pleased with that. Not gonna
plus lie. 350, right?
No, plus 565.
Oh,
yeah. I had 2 dogs. I had 2 dogs in it. So I had the Saints, Dolphins, and Steelers on the money line. Nailed it.
But you love betting against Lamar Jackson when it counts.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a good strategy, makes decent money.
Yes, it does. So make sure to check out our SportsWrap Substack. Clips from the show, extended interviews, all sorts of good stuff. Again, SportsWrap Substack. Go and check it out. Also, the podcast available on Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and a whole bunch more. All right, Sammy Arnell, without any further delay, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, the end for Daniel Jones in New York, it would seem, as the Giants have turned the page. Well, they've kind of flipped it back. We're going back to Tommy DeVito, apparently, Sam Yarnell, who will get the start this week for the Giants, who have gone into tank mode to try and get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, whoever it's going to be, the first quarterback overall taken in this NFL draft. But Sam, the Giants make it official. They are tanking.
Yeah, the crazy number to me, Jason, that in his 70 games played for the New York Giants, by the 70, he started 70 games for the Giants. Daniel Jones made $108,129,056. He is the 35th highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Shout out to Michael Gannetti over at Spot Rack. Great numbers over there. And another number that was interesting to me as to why, because obviously DeVito's the third guy in the depth chart in terms of quarterbacks. It's Jones and then Drew Lock and then Tommy Cutlets. But the interesting note is that the Giants would be on the hook for a ton of money if they put Drew Lock in right now. He's got incentives that pay him basically $250,000 every time he plays 40% of the snaps in the game, every time he plays 50%, 60%, so on and so forth, all the way up to 90. So he's making an extra, $1.25 million for every game that he starts as the Giants quarterback, starts and finishes. Makes a lot of sense to go to Tommy DeVito here. I wonder if this will be the renaissance of that agent guy, Sean Stellato, or whatever his name is.
So much for his 15 minutes being up. Odds and ends. What a finish. What a finish. Yesterday with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Phoenix Suns, and hats off to Julius Randle, no longer a New York Knick. His shining moment as a Minnesota Timberwolf yesterday, hits the game-winning three at the buzzer. Cool ending for Minnesota as they try to sort of get everything put together up there with that new roster that's in place.
That was an incredible play, because if you go back and watch it, the ball was very clearly, in my mind, supposed to go to Ant. And then Julius Randle just kind of leaked out and happened to get a foot of space. An incredible move. Wide open look. Bang. Yeah, that was awesome. It was fun to watch. And Julius Randle gets his introductory moment in a Timberwolves uniform. Very
Absolutely. Cool. Now he is a T-Wolf. Monday Night Football. Cowboys and Texans tonight. The line, in case you don't know, it is Houston minus 7.5. The money line minus 360. If you want the Cowboys, it's plus 285. The total is 41.5. They've got to win a home game at some point, don't they, Sam?
Yeah, right. Like, that is. So here's the thing.
But
the public
Cooper
is
Rush.
all over the Texans in this game, and it makes me want to zag so hard. I want to go to the Cowboys. I think it's Cowboys plus 7 and a hook here.
Yeah.
I think the over is probably a good play too. I think there's a lot of points in this game because not a lot of defense from either of these teams. That's where I'm sitting, Jason Page.
Cooper
I like
Rush,
the Cowboys
though.
plus more than a touchdown.
It's Cooper Rush. I just can't. I got hoodwinked this weekend into thinking the Jets had to figure out a way to beat Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, but that's different. That's the Jets.
The Cowboys are terrible too.
Yeah, but Cooper Rush has shown you that he can actually come in and win games. Like, I'm so delusional with this team that I think Cooper Rush might be a better answer than Dak Prescott.
See, I feel like it's an under, and it's funny. You and I really differ on this. I think it's an under game.
So you're Texans and under, and I'm Cowboys and over.
I don't even think I would touch the spread.
I hate this game, and you're forcing me to bet it. I'm betting it with your money here.
Yeah,
I am not betting this game on the side or the total with my own money. But I will say, I think the Houston defense scores a touchdown.
I'm lucky I have any money after a trip to the casino and a craps table last night. So you're not betting my money. That's not happening. It's not going to be part of the equation. I don't like the game. If you force me to take something, I'll take under 41.5.
Luke Schoonmaker, 29-1 anytime touchdown. There you go.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks, Bill Bender. Thanks to you, Sammy Arnell. We'll see you all back here on Tuesday for more Sports Wrap, weekend leftovers, a whole bunch of good stuff. We'll see you then.